When did you realize the 49ers are one of the best teams in the NFL? For me, the epiphany happened right around the bye week in 2019. Remember, the Niners started the season 2-0 on the road, but they played the Bucs and the Bengals, and at the time I thought, big deal. Let's see the 49ers beat the Steelers week 3 without Joe Staley, who had broken his leg. I picked the Steelers to win that game. The Niners won it at the very last second, and I thought, wow, this team could exceed expectations this year. They might win 9 or 10 games. They might go to the playoffs. Then they had their bye week. Then they came back and played the Browns on national television. Remember, everyone thought the Browns were going to be the team that made the big jump in 2019. They traded for Odell Beckham Jr., and the Niners shut him down with Emmanuel Mosley, who no one had heard of like 3 days before that game, and trounced the Browns 31-3 on national television. At that moment, I realized, or I thought, this team might never lose another game. Now the 49ers are firmly in the top echelon of NFL teams, along with the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Saints, and the Bucs, now that they have Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski. Those 4 teams that I just listed all have MVP quarterbacks. The 49ers do not, although Jimmy Garoppolo could win one in the future. The 49ers have their own unique recipe for success. Here are the top 5 things that make the 49ers elite. 1, in order. 1, unlimited depth. So let's go back to what I mentioned about Joe Staley, how he broke his leg and missed week 3. He missed quite a few weeks. The backup left tackle, Sean Coleman, dislocated his ankle and fractured his fibula in training camp, missed the entire season. So when Staley went down, the Niners had to play their third-string left tackle, a rookie named Justin Skule, whom they drafted in the 6th round. He was terrific. The Niners went 8-0 with Justin Skule playing left tackle. I mean, who saw that coming? And then he got hurt. And the Niners had to put their 4th-string left tackle in the game, Daniel Brunskill. The Niners lost that game, but they were playing in Baltimore against the Ravens, one of the best teams in the league, and they lost by 3. Brunskill was fantastic, and he might be a starter next year. And it was like there was a story like that at every position. The Niners won games without George Kittle, Kyle Juszczyk, Tevin Coleman, Weston Richburg, Mike McGlinchey, Dee Ford, Quan Alexander, Jimmy Ward, Jaquiski Tartt, on and on and on, Akello Witherspoon. And every single time there was an injury, I would think to myself, this is the one that the Niners can't overcome. This will be the straw that broke the camel's back, to use a terrible cliche. And it never was. They have unlimited depth, and no other team can match it. Number 2, the 49ers have the best defensive line in the league. It's like the Mike Tyson of defensive lines. Yes, they lost DeForest Buckner, so it's not quite as good, but it's still great. And when I say it's the Mike Tyson of D lines, it's intimidating. I mean, mediocre quarterbacks seem intimidated by this D-line before they even step on the field and spend most games just protecting themselves, throwing the ball away quickly, and finishing with like 70 passing yards. And some elite quarterbacks get intimidated as well. I'm looking at you, Aaron Rodgers. Niners made him look sick twice last season. So Buckner's gone, but Nick Bosa is the star of this group. He will command double teams the rest of his career, which means Eric Armstead, Javon Kinlaw, and Dee Ford will have one-on-one matchups they can win. That's the recipe for the 49ers' success on defense. Number 3, the 49ers have George Kittle, the best tight end in the league, and Kyle Juszczyk, the best fullback. You could call them the best offensive weapons because the Niners use them in a lot of different ways. Let's talk about their blocking. Everyone knows the Niners are a run-first team, and pretty much all of their runs, no matter how tricky or intricate they seem, will end up with Kittle and Juszczyk leading the way for the running back. You follow Kittle and Juszczyk, you're going to get to the ball. And yet opponents can't ever stop the Niners run game. Kittle and Juszczyk are 2 of the best blockers in the league, and they make the Niners run game as special as it is. And they're excellent receivers as well, especially Kittle. He could be a starting wide receiver in the NFL. That's how good he is. But his value comes from the fact that he can catch passes and block, and he's elite at both. You know, in that sense, he might make a greater impact on his offense than any other non-quarterback in the league. And he's certainly the MVP of the 49ers offense. 4, an elite coaching staff. Let's just go down. You got Kyle Shanahan, who is one of the best play designers and play callers in the league, although he has his issues in the fourth quarter of very, very big games, but generally a great play caller. He has Robert Saleh, who's the best defensive coordinator, and Shanahan discovered him. Back when Saleh was a relative unknown, basically anonymous, Shanahan hired him, stuck with him when Saleh's defense struggled the first 2 seasons, and so-called pundits like me argued strongly that the 49ers should fire Saleh. Shanahan stuck with him, which is a mark in Shanahan's favor. There's also the running backs coach, Bobby Turner, who's one of the best in the league, the tight ends coach, John Embry, who discovered and developed George Kittle, Chris Kosarick, the defensive line coach, who turned Eric Armstead into a good player in 1 year. Mike McDaniel, the run game coordinator, who you probably don't even know. He's about 5'3", and he might be the brains behind the 49ers run game. He's probably going to be an offensive coordinator, if not a head coach soon. So every great head coach has a great coaching staff, which seems to suggest that Kyle Shanahan is on the way to becoming a great head coach because his staff is great. I mean, compare it to Bill Walsh's staff. Bill Walsh had George Seifert, Dennis Green, Mike Holmgren, the best, Bob McKittrick. Bob McKittrick was the 49ers offensive line coach, and he and Walsh didn't even like each other. They were like oil and water. One guy was a military guy. The other guy was a finesse pass game specialist. But they worked together. They needed each other. Bob McKittrick was the 49ers run game coordinator. He would draw up the run plays and the blocking assignments, which means Walsh's ideas wouldn't have worked without McKittrick. They had a symbiotic relationship, even though they didn't particularly like each other, but they worked together. And that's one of the reasons Walsh was so great, that he recognized his need for a guy like McKittrick. That's amazing self-awareness, and Shanahan seems to have it as well. Final reason the 49ers are elite. You probably noticed I haven't mentioned their quarterback yet. Well, Jimmy Garoppolo is a huge reason the 49ers are an elite team. He is the 5th factor, and it's his it factor. I mean, he's not an MVP yet. He hasn't been a Pro Bowler yet. There are times when the Niners completely phase him out of their offense, and he's just basically a hander-offer because their run game is so good. I mean, if you look at the quarterbacks who started 16 games last season in the NFC, Garoppolo threw fewer passes than all of them. He can become sort of like an adjunct part of the offense, not necessarily the engine. But for every run-first offense needs a quarterback who can convert some third downs, because you can't really run on 3rd and 5. I mean, you could. You're just not going to have a very high success rate. So you get to 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4, great. Now you need your quarterback to make the throw and convert the first down, and that's what Jimmy did better than any quarterback in the league, really. I mean, you look at his stats. He threw 130 passes on 3rd down last season. 65 of them converted the 3rd downs into first downs. That's a 50% success rate, the highest in the league. So, no, he didn't win the MVP last season, but his job, which was to move the chains and keep the defense on the sideline so we could rest and recuperate, he was the best at it. And the defense wouldn't have been as good as it was without Jimmy Garoppolo extending drives. This is the 49ers' particular recipe for success. It might not work for every team, but it certainly works for them.